Welcome to the Black Doctors Talk podcast. I am Dr. Sharon H. Porter, host for this episode and member of the Black Doctoral Network. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Joshua Nelson. He is a pastor and CEO of Mind, Body, and Soul Consultation. Welcome to Black Doctors Talk podcast, Dr. Nelson.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. If you could please start just by telling our viewers and listeners a little about your background. Where does it all begin for you?
Well, I'm from California. I made my way out here to the South. Uh, Went because of college, going to HBCU down in Huntsville, Alabama. But my journey really began, in California. And honestly, how I got into ministry was just one summer. I worked as what we call a call porter or a canvasser, and I was going door to door selling books. They were religious books I was selling, and it was probably the worst experience of my life. but it was also, but it was also the best experience of my life because while it was very hard, very tough, it was so hot. It was just grueling work. Anyone who's done door to door sales knows the grind, but it really taught me to rely on God. I think I found God during that time. And I said, man, if this is like how it's going to be, I don't know. Something about it just drew me to that aspect of ministry. And ever since then, I was just dead set on just doing full time ministry, working in the community, doing things for people. It just really drew me to it.
Wow. And that was actually going to be my first question because you actually held the title of pastor for 13 years and you shared how you really began that journey. But what made you take the leap into that journey?
Yeah, I think it's just a number of things happened. But God just worked things out. Again, I got into the school in Huntsville, Alabama, Oakwood University, and just seeing how what amazing theology program they had. I got hired right out of college. I did a mission trip to Romania of all places, and just it was a miraculous thing how I got hired, and just the whole story of how I was like 22 years old going into a rural community down in North Carolina, all black church, first time in that kind of environment. Being from California, was very multicultural. This is like culture shock, and just being a Cali boy and how we kind of preach in Cali with our flip flops, and then we come over here with the formal robe and stuff and preaching, hooping and stuff. Like that was a huge transition for me, and it's just been a journey, but that was kind of how I began, and definitely an awesome experience, but a tough experience as well, which is how I ended up writing the book that I guess we'll talk about a little bit later.
Wow. Okay. And so, yes, and you authored one of your books entitled In the Trenches 10 Reasons to Stay in Ministry. Chapter 3, you titled Double Down. Can you share a little bit about that chapter?
Yeah, I mean, Double Down was really just my experience. I got the book right here, and it was just really the the just the gruelingness of ministry, which is really what the entire book is about. Just being so young in ministry, the things you don't think about, and really learning how to focus on my mental health, focus on my connection with God, and also focus on being versus doing. And really just being how to get into the presence of God and how to center yourself. And so Double Down is just really, when things get tough, don't give up, but just double down and really pray harder and go deeper into your relationship with God.
I love that perseverance. Just don't quit. I love that. So, undoubtedly through your journey through ministry, you certainly have come across people who have impacted you. So, who has had a tremendous impact on you as a pastor?
Yeah, I think my pastor growing up, had a huge impact on me. I had a couple of pastors growing up, but like probably the last pastor before I went to college, uh, you know, he just really methodical in his approach to ministry, very pastoral. Did an awesome job in terms of how he dealt with people during in like crisis and grief situations, which is why now I volunteer as a chaplain as well, and I just kind of love the hospital scene. I think because of him, and so him, and then also a colleague of mine, also a young pastor. He was a few years ahead of me, but I kind of watched how he engaged the community and watched the work he was doing, and just really impressed me how he was able to really just go into a city and just infiltrate it really, and just kind of network so well that people were calling him to do all sorts of stuff. And I've really modeled my ministry after his, and in many ways, I've kind of copied a lot of things he's done in many regards. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So how important is mentoring, and do you have an opportunity to mentor others?
Yeah, I do. I've always mentored. I've always had a couple young men that I would mentor. My dissertation I did was on, focused on young black men, and so that's been kind of my focus and my passion. I've also mentored some colleagues of mine as well. So that's very important to me. And also, I just started this academy, the Activate Change Academy, where every week I'm coaching individuals around the country who want to learn how to be community activists, how to be engaged in their community. And so that's been a really fruitful and really rewarding thing, because it's one thing to you know get information and really pull from my mentors and just kind of keep it to myself. But when you are able to have that feeding into yourself and also giving out, to people who really want it, because you think as a pastor you're able to just, you preach and talking all the time, but I mean, let's be real, sometimes church folk don't really want to go out and do hardcore ministry, but if you got a team that really wants to do it, it's good to have mentees that really want to get it done and learn how to do it. So it's been great.
And being active in the community, giving back, paying it forward, that really seems to be a hallmark of your ministry. Why is this so important to you?
Yeah, I think I really trace it back to uh, some years back when I was pastoring a couple churches in South Carolina. And when I was there, I did a lot of things in the community there, small rural town, and I really got to see firsthand, a lot of the inequities, the poverty that pervades communities of color, particularly. And it drew me in. And I think when I left there and I saw a lot of the charity that we did, and it was great. We did some good stuff. We were feeding, a bunch of families each week. But when I look back, I said, man, I don't know if we really changed any policy, if we really, caused any lasting change. And so I really have honed in and like really learned here where I'm now to like how to really promote that lasting change in communities. I guess I didn't really want to see what happened there happen again, where we did good things. It was great, but it was just for that moment, and I wanted things to be more lasting, to actually transform people's lives. And that right there, that that idea of transforming people's life, that gets me every time. That'll make me cry every time, because I latch onto people's stories and they really see what they're struggling with and empathize with them. And I'm training myself to be incarnational in my ministry, and that has really impacted me to kind of stay the course and really continue being passionate about this thing.
And I love the fact that you mentioned how, you were feeding those who needed food, but your thought just went to the policy of it all. And I think that's important, because if we continue to do the charitable things but not fix the problem, then are we really helping solve anything? And I think that's exceptional that you had that foresight, to want to really, not only be charitable, but change policy in that fact as well.
Yeah.
So please share with us the work you do with mind, body, and soul consultation.
Yeah, mind, body, and soul birthed out of the similar vein of what I'm talking about, and just really seeing people in poverty, seeing even friends of ours whose marriages were on the rocks, and just saying, what can we do in a not just because my wife's a counselor, so not just in a mental space, but also just in a holistic space. We realized like people's diets affected how they thought, and we're big on diet, we're big on exercise, and so just seeing how, of course, it's spiritual, all of it's connected, so how can we really develop a person to be transformed holistically. And so that's really the idea around mind, body, and soul. So we, nonprofit, we, get various grants, people give donations, and that goes really for us to be able to do the work, provide materials to people. And we do a lot of, just, I would say free, pro bono stuff for people who maybe can't afford it. And we, we also, do marriage counseling and stuff like that as well. But that's really what it is, and just really being able to, go into people's lives and say, hey, look, this is what we can do. We can walk you through stuff, because I mean, when people, it's poverty is very difficult. It's almost impossible to get out of if you don't have a team that's with you, working with you. And so that's what we provide, is that support, that team, especially with financial information, really teaching people how to manage their finances, which is extremely crucial, in many of our communities. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do. And I guess I'll also say this: we do all focus on community action as well, because we believe that the people who who we love and who we're focused on, oftentimes it's a cycle, and they're locked in a cycle because of what's happening in the community, whether being forgotten by their politicians or through just systemic racism. So what can we do in the voting spectrum, even though we're nonpartisan? What can we do to encourage them to vote and really think through how their vote can affect their actual everyday life?
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, and you actually are helping in Georgia right now to activate voting for this runoff that's coming up. And so, how do you motivate a people? Because for right now, it is a critical time, and as history would have it, African Americans don't tend to vote more so in runoffs than in the general election. And so we know that this is a pivotal election. What type of work and how are you helping to motivate this whole stance in voting?
Oh man, I like to say that we had a part to play now in this last one, but the reason why we're being everyone's focusing on Georgia, I mean, it's just been surreal. I mean, it's been amazing. The network, the structure that we've been able to create, even here in Southwest Georgia, we have a coalition, and of course, we're not pushing any candidates, we're not pushing any party, we're just pushing voting. And we've had some situations, some issues that have happened. We were in the news for some stuff. Even Al Sharpton was talking about some stuff that happened down here. We had some real kind of run-ins with people who didn't like simply what we were doing in terms of being a support at the polls, providing snacks and food. People were sitting in the hot sun trying to vote and stuff like that. So, I won't go into all that. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, just right now, I mean, I just had a meeting really today. I mean, just with my team and just encouraging them, and we're about to just hit the ground running and just go hard with this thing, because we know that we have power when we vote, and really encouraging people to get out there. And we believe that that we can change the tide by just simply getting people to exercise their right.
And I love that. And not to keep on this voting thing, but I love the fact when organizations who are nonpartisan can really focus on just being registered, getting out to vote, the basics of that, and let everyone else take care of the campaigning. And
Right.
so I applaud you on the work that you and your organizations are doing. So thank you for that. You also co-authored a textbook, The Cultural Competence in Higher Education. Actually, I think you co-authored that with your wife. Um, can you talk about the importance of developing cultural competence?
Yeah, my wife is big on that. So her dissertation was on that, and so I think with my background being primarily in restorative justice and urban ministry, introducing to her the idea of restorative justice and kind of seeing restorative justice being really played out and teased out in the academic world, in schools, and how young people, or how their disciplinary uh, problems are worked out through restorative justice. And so restorative justice has been kind of that link, and really saying, hey, you need, if you're a professional and you're in the workplace, you need to be culturally competent, and a method for that is using restorative justice as a mechanism for you to understand other cultures. And of course, restorative justice, it centers in Africa, and this idea of Ubuntu, which is the African conglomerate word, which talks about being, because of you I am. And so there's just this idea of thinking beyond just us versus them, which is often what you develop in the Western society, but really grabbing back onto the idea that we're in this thing together. And even if someone is offending you or has harmed you, there is a way to bring restoration that is healthy, and it builds up the entire community, that will not be necessarily detrimental to one side. And so that is really kind of the big focus. And there's a lot more to it. So I hope you all get the textbook and check it out.
Absolutely. And although it's in higher education, I'm definitely interested in seeing it as an elementary principle. We use restorative justice for our young ones, to restore peace and to restore all that is so important. So very interested in that whole concept. So thank you for that. So how do you continue to build your knowledge around urban ministry?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is just created a network. I've been blessed to be able to travel in my studies for urban ministry. I've been able to study. I've been able to study in cities like Chicago, um, Toronto, even London. And just studying and really being able to talk to people. I remember very significant, network opportunity I had with Father Flager, who's, the father, the Catholic priest there in Chicago, deals with a lot of different gangs and stuff like that, and reconciling there. He's, I guess, common would call him his pastor and others like that. So that was like a starstruck moment to meet him, and just being in circles like that, being able to really continue with some of those relationships even now, and even just being in the mix, like in Atlanta, going into the marches, this summer. Even had an opportunity in New York, to be in a march. So also the big one was the national out there in D.C. with Sharpton. That was amazing. Was able to be in that march. So just being in these places where the people are and the networks that I've developed, because this is where we see ministry going. We see people going towards cities. Gentrification is something that's happening. So all this stuff is really how it relates to Black people, how it relates to restorative and social justice, and I want to be up on it. So I try to do as much as I can, whether it be through that or through the books that I have. I have a whole lot of books I've been reading. Keep myself up to date on what's really going on. So.
And I love that, a lot of things that I read, you always mention family. How, and I'm not sure how young your children are, but speak to me about that presence that you have with your children when you are out in the marches and doing all those things. What is that conversation like?
Oh, it's awesome. It's amazing. I wish I could share my screen and show you some pictures. There's a there's a significant moment with my daughter who's usually with me when I'm going to do stuff. And actually, and I spoke at the city council. We were talking with the elections board, and I referenced my daughter, because there was some issues with them calling the police. It was just anyway. I'm going on that, but I was like, my daughter is with me. My daughter's out there, and so how dare we cause any type of issues when we have children who are watching how we behave. And one of the reasons why I've been so passionate in this political world too is how we act and how we behave for our children. And so there's a moment though, my daughter, she took the bullhorn, and she's 4 years old. She took the bullhorn and she's on a bullhorn because she sees daddy and everyone else doing this stuff. She's screaming to the crowd, and she's screaming, she goes, Black voters matter. So she was screaming. So and it's just funny because she'll say things, and even her prayers, she's saying, God, please be with Black voters matter, be with
Wow.
fair count, whatever organization I'm working with, or
Wow.
networking with. She kind of she's seeing it. Even my nonprofit that I'm doing out here, another one I'm doing, she'll reference. So she just sees it. My son is, he's just turned 3. He's seeing it too, and I just love that. And more than that, I love it when just even today we were out and she was like, "Oh, that man, he needs some help. Let's give him some money. You know." And I was like, man, that's awesome. You have that heart towards it. And then we gave her a lesson. Say, yeah, we can give him some money, but let's also pray for him. Let's also see what else we can do to help him. Because we're not just trying to do just all charity. We want to think about justice too. So she's learning. And I just love being able to teach her these things right now when she's young. And so I know I can see it really being ingrained in her, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, I love that. So what would you say is your main focus when you're ministering others?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I am still unapologetically a pastor, right? So I think my career is shifting a lot more towards community action, community organizing, which I really really love, my passion. But at the end of the day, what drives me is just being able to demonstrate the God of justice, the God of love to people. And my wife and I actually wrote a devotional book with that title, and really just trying to show people, either telling them or showing them a God that loves them, and that really drives me. Along with just people. People excite me. People, their stories, their experiences. Realizing that uh, you know uh, no one else is going to do it but me. Maybe I have to do something. I can't just wait for someone else to do it. And so that drives me as well, and keeps me motivated and keeps me going.
Well, let me ask you, can you share for those who are not really familiar with Seventh Day Adventists what the basic tenets are and the basic principles of the Seventh Day Adventist?
Yeah. So right. So I mean, some of the similarities, with most other denominations or Christian denominations, we're Christian. Number one, we believe in Jesus. We believe that, despite what maybe others may say to you, we believe that the only way, and I mean the only way to heaven, is by believing in Jesus Christ. And so that is our big thing. And one of the things I've said, I just was doing a Bible study with some people recently, and I said, the biggest thing is, if any doctrine, any truth that you have, any different beliefs we have, at the end of the day, you have to find Jesus in that, and you have to realize or ask yourself, how does this belief, this doctrine, lead me closer to Christ? Because truth is simply just the revelation of Jesus Christ. And so, um, I can go into everything, but I mean that, we really just focus on that. And I guess the biggest difference is we worship on Saturday versus on Sunday, which biblically is the Sabbath, Friday night to Saturday night. And so we're really big into not just sleeping from Friday night to Saturday night, but we're big into what Isaiah 58 says and 59 says, and talks about how we should be out there doing community service, social justice, restorative justice in our communities, and we have to be the repairers of the breach. And so a lot of my habits for the Sabbath is really thinking through, taking time to stop thinking about what I need to get for myself and get money for myself, but thinking through really what can we do as a community, as a body of believers for others. And I believe that hopefully I'm moving my Adventist church to thinking through our beliefs in that vein of thinking.
Thank you for that. So I am definitely a believer that failure, or whatever you want to call it, is a part of the success journey. What have your failures taught you?
Well, I think it's taught me resilience. I think that automatically when you have failed, you want to just give up. And I've dealt with the giving up to very dark extents that I think we all may understand what I'm saying when I say that, to where you just want to just totally give up and just give everything up. Um, and I've come out of those places and I've come out shining, and dealing with that and really, having the foresight to have mentors and counselors around me. And I think that when you have failed, it really, if you don't give up, it sharpens your tools, and so it teaches you something that you didn't have before. And for me, it's really focused me to really center in on that one thing. Like, sometimes I was so divided that I was failing because I was involved in too much. And you all hearing me saying that this guy's involved in a whole lot right now. But I think that I know which ones are the most important. I know it's my relationship with God that's most important, my family that comes next. And I mean, I'll drop anything for my family, And I think that after that, just really my career thinking through, and now I'm recognizing my commitment to the community is paramount for me. And so having that as a center really has grounded me. When others may say you should be doing this, doing that, I'm like, nah, I know what my purpose is now because I've been in different dark places and I've come out, shining like God wants me to.
I really think that being vulnerable and sharing those things that no, I didn't always accomplish what I wanted to, but as you said before, I persevered. I kept going. I doubled down. I didn't stop. I think that's so important for others to see because they can see you have achieved so much in spite of those things that tried to stop and block you. And so I think that's so important for others to see that we are going to have challenges. There will be obstacles, but the thing is you just got to keep pushing and get to the other side of that. So thank you for that. What skills have helped you become successful?
I think the biggest thing that I do is networking and just building relationships. Um, I think also my commitment to my purpose. Just really being set on that. And maybe try to answer your question right. I think I'm going to answer it with this story. When I first started pastoring, there was a woman who called me, and of course, you get people who are upset or members who maybe have, an axe to grind for whatever reason. And she called and she was very, very uh, just upset and just really was going in on me about, and I don't even, I just got there really like maybe a month, but I think what she was projecting was from her experience with the past pastors and whatnot. And she was just like, I know what you're going to do. You're so excited now. You're so passionate now. You're young, but I know what's going to happen. As soon as you leave here, you would have fizzled out. Your passion's not going to be there anymore. You're not going to be excited anymore. And that conversation has been seared in my brain. Like I've kept that with me. While it was extremely negative, uncomfortable, I didn't like the conversation. It has fueled me throughout my entire life since that moment. Because I've always said to myself, anytime I'm kind of waning in my passion, I say, you know what, I'm not going to be that person you said I was going to be. And I keep pushing. I keep pushing to a point where people are just really amazed by my pace and the tenacity. But I'm really balanced. I'm very balanced. God has helped me be very balanced, I believe, now, and I'm just dead set on that. So that's that skill of just being committed, holding that passion up, and then networking. Of course, I think I could talk more about that, but I think that's been really a big value. Yeah.
So, what are you most proud of in your career?
Yeah, so I think that's it. I think networking. I think just being what I've developed here and the amount of relationships I've developed in a short amount of time, and uh, whether it was the community garden that we planted at the church and which prompted other community gardens, whether it was the multiple grants that we got in funding, whether it was the teams and coalitions that I started, whether it was the pop-up vegan restaurant for the first one in this area that we started. I mean, that I'm so proud of that. I mean, there's just so many different things, but I think just really that network and realizing that we're all in this thing together. I think unfortunately, growing up in the church and maybe other denominations are the same way, you kind of develop these little silos, of like us versus them. It's the Christians versus the pagans or whatever. I don't know. It's just like you have these things, and I just realized, what? That's a bunch of whatever. Like we're all in this thing together. It's us and us. And so when I look at that and I open my horizons with that, you really are. I've been able to find and great success in just bringing more people into my aura and just allowing what we all have to help all of us rise.
Wow. So, what advice would you give to others who may have the same passion to serve in ministry specifically, but have yet to heed the call?
Yeah. So it's a good question. I mean, you know, my mother, she said something to me that also has stuck with me. And I was going to ministry. I was young, and she's seeing my life and the stuff I'm doing. She's like, this boy ain't ready. I don't know what he's, I don't know what she was thinking, but my mom knows you, right? So, she's like, you about to be 22. You're gonna pastor people 3 times your age. And so she asked me the question. She says, "Do you have a passion for souls?" And I'm like, yeah, of course. And she just kept asking me the question. I'm like, well, okay, maybe I don't. What do you mean? So, but that really made me think, like, am I really about people? And I think that has been tested, especially when you know how people are. You know how people can be. Like, do you really love these people? Do you really love them? I don't know. You make it hard sometimes, but that really, I think, has to be paramount. You have to really find that love for people, that passion for uh, the community, and for me, in my context of focusing on Jesus and seeing that he was not always well liked, but yet he still pressed on. There's this quote, like he was never, overexcited by praise, and he wasn't ever totally discouraged by critique, because he was just like, that's not really what matters. Is really what my father says, and that's kind of how you would have to kind of center your life and thinking about your ministry and your call, and really hearing the Holy Spirit and say, is he calling you in this full-time ministry of really loving people, which is very difficult at times.
Now, you talked about your dissertation research being about young Black men. What, first of all, drove you to that research? And then what were some of the major findings from your research?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. When I think probably even before when Philando Castile was shot. When Philando Castile was shot, like that was really what just pushed me over. But it was a number of things, right? Just watching, even with Trayvon Martin, just watching all these things happen with young Black men, and kind of thinking about what I could do. And one thing with being getting a doctorate, people who have the doctorate, all of us, we kind of know this. Like, it humbles you because you're like, I want to save the world. I want to do these big things, but then you're like, okay, I got my focus, which is going to be maybe police brutality or whatever it's going to be, or social justice. And you narrow it down. Okay, police brutality. You're like, okay, let me deal with what part of that. Okay, let me deal with the young men. Okay, then what part of that? And he's like, keeps getting narrow and narrow. You're like, man, once you finally do your dissertation, you're like, man, I only know this sliver of thing of this whole entire thing. Like, I don't know anything. I know nothing now. So you really are humbled by it. But I think that just knowing that I can fix that one area and just really mentoring um, boys and young men, and teaching them the laws and what these terms mean and how to really what the main purpose of the dissertation is to build trust, between police officers and young black men. So what we did was we brought together young black men in high school and police officers. Four different departments sent me police officers, and we all met together for an intervention for 3 weeks, and just just went over the intervention manual that I created, which should be available soon on my website for anyone who wants to download it, and use that as a rubric. And at the end of the study, found interesting thing. Most of the officers, their perception coming in and their perception going out about the young men did not change that much. Maybe a little tick up, nothing that would say we would in the scientific world would say significant. But with the young men, their perception of the officers definitely changed, definitely went up. And so while I was hoping to really change the perception of the officers, I think that, if nothing else, it's a powerful mechanism to use to really help young black men see themselves differently and see their place in their community differently. And I'm hoping that, as I'm going to do it again, I'm talking to my chief now, we'll actually be able to see more significant change, in the police officers as well.
Wow, thank you. So, what's next for Dr. Joshua C. Nelson?
Hopefully to take over the world. No, um, no, I'm not that great. No, and honestly, I really am humbled by just the amount of people and the network that we have here with the Black Doctorate Network. I mean, I think about my life, my story. I mean, I'm just a small drop in the bucket in terms of accomplishments, and I hope to do more. But I don't know. I mean, God is still directing and leading, and there are aspirations that I have and things that I want to do. Always contemplated going into political office and things like that. But you know, I definitely know I want to just continue to build our nonprofit, Mind, Body, and Soul Consultation. Really continue with the Activate Change Academy that I've started, getting more people onto that and just training more people from the grassroots level and seeing how we can develop coalitions around the country, and then of course possibly doing full time community organizing, whether that be I've already turned down a number of people courting me for running for office, so I don't know how long I'm gonna be able to hold those at bay, but we'll see whatever God has in store. So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So, how has your affiliation with the Black Doctoral Network enhanced you professionally?
you know Again, so thank you for that question. I honestly am very just thankful that I found this network, and just even the relationships I've developed already, and being a part. I would say this too: being a part of some of the recreational Zoom activities we've had. That's been really fulfilling for me. Having a number of networks that I'm in, I think this one is awesome because that people are kind of the same level in terms of trying to achieve all we're all black, and so that's just motivating in itself. And so I think for me it's been a lot really just more mental health and self-care that's really helped me just kind of have a safe place and know that there are people in this network that are like me and are also supporting me outside of maybe like my work network, my colleagues who may be a little bit more competitive or a little bit more whatever. This is just more of a safe space, and so that's been a big asset to my career.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Nelson, I thank you for joining us today. It has indeed been a pleasure. Please tell our viewers and listeners where they can go to learn more about you and the work that you're doing.
Yes, thank you. You can always find me on Facebook under my name, Joshua Nelson, or you can go to our website, which is mindbodysoulconsult.org, mindbodysoulconsult.org, or my own website, which is Joshua C. Nelson. C stands for Christopher, so joshuacnelson.org. But either of those ways, pretty accessible. Hit me up, and I'd love to talk more. Also, if you go to my either website or my Facebook, you can look to join the Activate Change Academy, which I'd love to be able to talk to you more about some of these things and how to really get involved in your community.
That sounds great. Thank you. Please be sure to stay connected to the Black Doctoral Network and connect with us on all of our social media channels. Thank you for joining us today for the Black Doctors Talk podcast. I am Dr. Sharon H. Porter, and we hope you will join us again. But until next time, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and tell a friend.